everyone. Bill Meridian again on October 10th, 2025, still here in the United States. This is the battle for Portland, and I mean Portland, Oregon, not any famous battle that took place in the Napoleonic period, but one that's going on right now. Let's see what astrology has to tell us. First, in order to put this in perspective, we have to look at a couple other charts. And by the way, the old website, BillMeridian.com, is still up. We have a new additional website, BillMeridianAstrology.com. That's on GoDaddy. We've had some trouble getting the payment process to work, but they are working on it, and hopefully it'll be done by next week. Well, why is there violence? Why is violence suddenly so popular? Why is it the in thing to do? Well, look at this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction chart from 2020. If this is supposed to rule the political economic climate for the next 20 years, what does it tell you is the in thing to do? Mars at 23 Aries 12, square Pluto at 23 Capricorn 51. That's a very tight orb. And Pluto is close to the midheaven if you set the chart up for New York. Now, that's my answer as to why we're having so much violence in general around the world. If you think you're going to wait to the next Jupiter-Saturn conjunction chart to get rid of this, in 2040, there's another Mars-Pluto square. So we've got this theme for 40 years. Now, Charles Jaynes said that just because a country declares independence doesn't mean it's a valid country. His feeling was that only until Cornwallis, the British general, surrendered to Washington at Yorktown, only then did the United States truly become independent. Now, Jim Lewis, who greatly popularized and promoted the ACG map, astrocartography, used this chart for his ACG map for the US because it shows Venus running through California, which used to be the Golden State, Mars and Jupiter angular in Europe, where the United States had its greatest victory in World War II. But you will notice that Pluto is at 4 Aquarius 24, Mars is at 6 Aquarius 56, a conjunction, and they're square Hades, which is a Uranian planet, at 6 Scorpio 59. Now, I think everyone knows what Mars and Pluto mean, but it's great strength, great force, absolutely brutal. It's the type of anger that is not rational. It comes deep from within, where the two people fight. They spend $50,000 in legal fees over a $10,000 item. The value of the item, the consideration, is not important. They just want to get each other. It's that type of crazy dynamic. And sometimes if I hear of killings or murders and they put up the chart of the killer, they very frequently have Mars-Pluto hard aspects. In the victim's charts, it's usually Mars in Hades, which is this Uranian planet. When I wrote for Dell Horoscope over 30 years, I tried to rectify the different horoscopes of the USA. This chart shows violent outbreaks and assassinations better than the other charts. So it is a valid chart. It's a valid chart for martial-type activities. So, and where is Pluto transiting right now? Is it 1 Aquarius and it just turned direct? So it's going to come forward and go over Mars, Pluto, and square Hades. Now, the Hades is, this whole configuration is death and destruction. You could also look at it as being subjugation, Hades, of the days of slavery. You could also look at it that way. Now, here is the horoscope of the city of Portland from my old friend Mark Penfield, who wrote wonderful mundane books. He traveled, did a lot of research, and he published, I think it was horoscopes of U.S. cities, but I would recommend all his books. I bought them all and punched them all into my system. For Portland, he has a natal chart at November 10, 1843, and now he set it for 12:33 p.m. LMT, Portland, Oregon. Why 12:33? Well, Mark would just say he had rectified all the charts. How he rectified them, the methodology he used, I could never really determine. But if that's true, look at the ascendant, 4 Aquarius 33. If you want to disregard the ascendant, look 2 degrees later. Mars is 6 Aquarius 31. Pluto is headed right for those degrees. And I believe when Pluto stationed retrograde, it started all the action, Pluto on the ascendant. And Saturn conjunct Neptune is at 0 Aries, and Saturn, in fact, is going to retrograde back over that Uranus twice. Now, Saturn Uranus can be conflicts with the authorities. Pluto hitting your ascendant is inviting, Big Brother to step in and start pushing you around or setting the record straight. Pluto is opposite, it's not on the chart, but the transiting Uranian planet Volcanus, which is right over here in early Leo. Now, the last time Volcanus was in Leo was hundreds of years ago. And there was so many power plays or violence in Europe that the Pope or what was left of the Holy Roman Empire stepped in and said, wait a minute, here's rules and regulations for elections, passing on power. Not everyone is a king. Now, that document was known as the Golden Bull. Volcanus was in Leo, and it had to do with controlling power. Leo rules gold, the Golden Bull. A bull meaning a statement or a proclamation. And Pluto is on and off squaring Volcanus. So let's put the USA and Portland together. Here we have Portland in the inner wheel. We see that Aquarius with that Mars at 6 Aquarius. And we see at 4.5 Aquarius the Portland ascendant, and there straddling the ascendant is the Mars, Pluto, and USA chart for the victory over Cornwallis at Yorktown Square, Hades up here. So when Pluto comes up, it's going to hit all of these degrees. So someone asked the mundane astrologer, is the violence at Portland at a peak? Is it over yet? You would say it's not over by a long shot. Let's take a look. Keep your eyes on November 3rd and November 6th this year, 2025. Mars will be on the midheaven on November 3rd, and Mars will be opposite the progressed midheaven on November 6th. In other words, the progressed midheaven is opposite the natal midheaven. So when Mars hits one, it hits them both. January 31, 2026, Saturn is right on Uranus. February 3rd, stationary direct Uranus is 180 to the midheaven, and again on April 21st. February 17th is that wicked solar eclipse, which is 90 degrees from transiting Uranus. And we'll jump back up to the chart just for a minute. So that would put Saturn down, that would put Uranus down here at the IC opposing the ascendant, and the eclipse will be over here in late Aquarius, squaring that, and that figure, which looks like a rocket ship, is the Uranian planet Zeus, which represents explosions. It represents any sort of transportation used to get around the planet. It represents ordnance, bombs, guns, artillery fire. How about using cars as weapons? So Uranus will go stationary there. And Zeus is known for big explosions and for fires. So that's the February 17th solar eclipse. And as we know from the work of Charles Jane, that solar eclipses can begin having an effect up to 3 months in advance, which would put this at mid-February. It starts to simmer or heat up. And watch transits over those degrees, even if the inner planets will start to stir the pot. And then, of course, it will be at a peak at February 17th, and then it will wind down over the following year or so. Now, Pluto will start hitting the ascendant March 1, 2026, July 15th, 2026, January 7th, 2027. Uranus will be conjunct the progressed midheaven June 1st, 2026, and Pluto will go over Mars in March on the 15th, 2027, July 3, 2027, January 19th, 2028. So is the action over? No, this looks like the beginnings of World War I, but it's in Portland. So I imagine what is going to happen is that the federal government will put pressure on Portland, and the people will resist and resist and resist. And of course, you know how Pluto works. The more they resist, the heavier the government is going to get. So this is, you don't want to fight. I always say to clients, you don't want to fight City Hall. You don't want to fight Pluto. Mars-Pluto fights are nutsy, crazy fights where there's no rationality, where the two people just want to hurt each other. So you have Pluto, Mars. So I think the Antifa is going to die on the hill or fight to the last person. That is the end of the presentation, and most of the techniques are in this book, Mastering Geopolitical Prediction, Applied Mundane Astrology, the basis of, well, it was 30 years with Del Horoscope, but I started before that, so I guess you could say it's about 45 years worth of work. And of course, there's the old favorite, the predictive power of eclipse paths. And then we have the In Search series 1 and 2, and then the economic books, which are Planetary Stock Trading 4 and Planetary Economic Forecasting. So you can buy all these at BillMeridian.com. At the moment, we don't accept PayPal because we're in a dispute with them. And so we've switched over to GoDaddy payments and can also accept checks and now Zelle. So if you can't get through on the website, you can reach me at cyclesresearch@gmail.com, and I will send these payment methods to you. I'm in the United States, so I can still receive checks until late November. So that's it. The Battle for Portland, Bill Meridian. Talk to you again soon. I've got a lot of stuff coming up.